Hey guys, Sean Patton here with Stronger Leaders, Stronger Profits. Thanks to everyone that came to my live event today on December 14th. The Green Beret Way, Rebel Leadership for a Changing Business World. But I wanted to offer this recording as a thanks and value to everybody. We packed a lot of information to this. But as you start to look over this, here's the bottom line. People have more opportunity than ever because of technology. And if you don't make leadership effective, passionate, empathetic, committed, top to bottom leadership, the central part of your business culture, you're going to have brain drain. You're going to fail because people have too many options, right? You're going to lose your best and brightest. They're going to go start their own thing. They're going to become an entrepreneur, or they're going to leave for another company that has a better mission. They're more passionate about, that takes care of their people better, that has better leaders from top to bottom and commits their people. So this is no longer non-negotiable, right? If you treat people like widgets, they're going to behave like widgets. So you have to lead them and talk about whole person leadership, not just workplace leadership. You have to be the leader, live the example, not just set the example when it's convenient. So I hope you enjoy this. Check out the links attached. You can go to Calendly. My link is on Calendly is Sean Patton. Set up a free 15-minute session or go to strongerleaderstrongerprofits.com to get more info. Enjoy. All right, so we'll get started today. Again, thank you for everyone for coming and making time today. This is a really important topic. I've started consulting and coaching at these different companies, and I'm already seeing this whole great resignation thing really take over, right? It's really kind of the dominant story in business right now. And we're coaching so many people that are struggling to find and retain top quality talent. And the reality is that the landscape is changing and we need to change with it. And it starts with you and it starts with leadership. So we're going to talk about what the current situation is, very briefly, kind of level set, make sure we're on the same page. Then we're talking about my background, right? Why listen to me? Why does my opinion about this matter? And then I'm going to talk about what I call the 5 principles of rebel leadership. What rebel leadership is, we'll conclude, and then we'll talk about next steps. We're getting all that done in a half hour. So we are going to just be throwing info at you the whole time and make this as packed with value as possible. So we are in the midst of the great resignation, but the reality is that this trend and this mindset started, all right, years ago. When you heard people complain about millennials, right? We talked to some of the old school folks in business. How do I get that these millennials, they don't want to work hard. They don't want to come in. They've got these different values, right? And we saw that accelerated now as Gen Z starts to get to the workforce. But the reality is that this trend that we're going to talk about started and culturally years ago. The pandemic just accelerated a trend in the workplace that had already begun, right? Because as technology continues to empower individuals and make more efficient organizations, people can start doing more with less, right? There are multiple multimillionaires and billionaires in their 20s using nothing but we hold in our pocket every day, right? So this transformed the classical workspace hierarchy, everything else, because all of a sudden the 22-year-old has a skill set the CEO head doesn't even understand, right? So the balance of power has shifted, and we have to get ahead of this. These perspectives in the workforce now have shifted even more, and burnout culture and grind it out where, come in, do your time, and then get your tail off for somebody doing a job that you really don't like, just to buy a 3-2 house and retire at 65. It's not the life people want to live anymore. And as leaders, we have to get over that, right? We have to address the market and the environment as it is, not as we want it to be. And money, people talk about money, and maybe that's, that isn't a driver, right? People need a living wage, but money is a satisfier. It's not a driver. It's not enough. My wife just left one company to take a job with another company for less money because the culture sucked. Right? We spend too much time working to not enjoy what we do, and people aren't going to do it anymore because there's too many options. Before it was, well, if I leave this job, then what? Now it's, I can have 8 things lined up by tomorrow. So the balance of power is completely shifted, right? People want to work for and spend money with organizations that have a mission they believe in. People are voting with their money and how they're spending it, but they're also voting with their work and their employment. They want their work to have an impact, and they want it to have meaning. They want purpose in their personal and professional lives. And this sentiment within the skilled workforce is not going to change. And honestly, is this really a bad thing that people want a higher quality of life and they can now do it with technology? Is this something we should fight? Well, I'll tell you, if you try to fight it, right, you're going to lose and you're going to die a slow death from brain drain. Because here are the top 10 reasons for employee burnout. And if you look at all of them, poor leadership, lack of organizational caring, negative coworkers, lack of resources, no clear organized vision, direction, poor communication. Guess what? They listed 10 things. They should have just listed one: poor leadership. Those are all symptoms of poor leadership. People don't want to be managed. They want to be led. And the quality of your junior and middle managers will make or break your company. 80% of your company is under the first 3 levels of leadership. And so this culture has to be ongoing, has to be permeating, and you have to do more with less. People are leaving for entrepreneurial endeavors and for organizations that have a leadership culture, not a management culture. This whole work, personal life balance doesn't exist. There is no work life. There is no personal life. Those are not separate things. There's just life. There's no work time and personal time. There's just time. You only have time. And so we can't lead people in only one area. We have to lead the whole person. And that's rebel leadership. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Why listen to me at all? All right. I know a few things about leading in unstable situations. I trained at the most intense experiences, 4 years at West Point, 10 years as an Army officer, 30 months deployed overseas as a Special Forces commander. I'm literally an expert. I've been in insurgency, in rebellion, and about how to address and lead people that have different values than I have myself, right? The quintessential value here, right? Example came from Iraq. One of my counterparts, in Afghanistan, when he first got to Afghanistan, right after 9/11, he goes in with 12 people at night from the north across and gets in a mountain valley with a single drawbridge or a bridge connecting 2 peaks. And as he went down to meet up with the guerrilla leader that he was supposed to connect with to help overthrow the Taliban, one of his guys called him and said, "Hey, just so you know, sir, I'm looking and there are 100 scopes pointed at you across from the other mountain." So that means that this commander has one shot to build rapport, one shot to communicate vision, one shot to convince that person that they should trust them and their men's lives with they have a common goal and a common mission. Or it could be death for him and his team. That's the environment that I grew up in. So this doesn't scare me, and it shouldn't scare you. We just need to change the way we think about it. And as I started training corporate leaders in some of these concepts, I started finding, oh no, they're not ready yet. They don't have that leadership, self-leadership mastery down. Their own mindset needs work. And so I wrote A Warrior's Mindset, the 6 Keys to Greatness. And I've laid out a clear structure to develop yourself as a leader, and I'll help you address in this environment. Now, that is the first principle of rebel leadership. Self-leadership mastery is non-negotiable. How can you expect to lead others and have others follow if you can't lead yourself? Self-leadership starts with a confidence to live and lead with openness, humility, and passion. The reality is your people don't expect perfection from you, but they do expect an unrelenting commitment to improvement. They expect you to be genuine. They expect to be treated and led by an empathetic leader who cares about them along with their KPIs. And we don't have time to go through the whole 6 keys to greatness here, but if you look at the first 5, they're about you. They're about self-mastery, perspective and gratitude, having an internal locus of control, accepting that you have free will and that accepting the responsibility for outcomes in your life, having a clear purpose, direction, a North Star, If you can't communicate very clearly and succinctly right now in a few sentences what your life purpose is, how are you going to inspire those below you to define theirs? Self-discipline. How many leaders do we know that are great in the boardroom, or they're great in the team room in the military, they're great somewhere else, and then we see them out and they're unfaithful in their lives to their spouses, or they're undisciplined in the way they treat people or care for themselves or live their own lives. Again, that's that idea that, well, I'm off the clock. Here's the deal, leaders, never off the clock. The people that work for you expect you to lead them and embody a leader. They expect you to live an example, not set the example. You don't set the example for work and then get to go off the clock on this. That's no longer an adequate leader that is going to excel in the modern business environment. They expect a leader 24/7. They expect a leader of them as a human being. They expect to come with you and ask you questions of what about finance? What about where my career is headed? What direction is this going? How should I handle this tough conversation in this relationship? And you be the leader for them. Self-leadership has to come first. You have to work on yourself and be relentlessly improving. Your people will respect that. The people will get behind that. Rebel leadership principle number 2, it's communication, stupid. That's all it is, right? As we go work in these remote environments, people are coming in, they're hybrid. They're all over the country. They're coming in for conventions. They're leaving. Guess what all that does? It means you have to wire tight your communication. You don't have the water cooler to come back and be like, oh, actually, hey, maybe we talked about this thing. I forgot to mention this other thing. Hey, what do you think about that? That's all gone now. That forces you as a leader to stop and think and prepare before you communicate. Because then your team's going to go to the 4 wins and they're going to need to be empowered with a clear, concise message so they can operate independent of you. If you feel like you have to micromanage and have daily meetings, it means you're a poor communicator. You shouldn't have to do that. So here's one tool, and it's a powerful tool that I teach that you can use, the 5 Bravo communication method. I developed this in the military, and I call it the 5 components of an order. But, components of an order was a little draconian for some business folks. We call it the 5 Bravo communication method now, but it's still the same. First, task. What do you want done? 2, purpose. Why does it need to be done? What effects are you trying to achieve? How does this impact other people in the organization? 3, intent. How you need something done. If it's a simple routine task, this could be next to nothing. If this is a new strategy, a new project, this could be the biggest part of what you had just asked them to do, right? Maybe there's regulations that dictate the way you need something done. Maybe there's some sort of team. Hey, by the way, you're going to get 2 people for marketing and 2 salespeople. By the way, Sherry's going to work with you as a co-lead on this, right? What resources do they have? What constraints do they have? All that goes in intent. End state. When this is 100% done, what does it look like? We need to know where we're heading before we take our first step. 5, timeline. This is the one that I see most people mess up. Okay. When you ask and you say, hey, Bill, can you get that report to me when you get a chance? And then it's not on your desk tomorrow. That's not your fault. Or excuse me, that's not Bill's fault. That's your fault. Right? He just hadn't had a chance yet. Right? Timeline needs to be very specific. Date, time. If you have intermediate timelines that need to get done, it needs to be very clear when you need this completed by. And then that's the 5, the Bravo, the back brief. Here's what the magic is. Then you say, all right, what did I just ask you to do? And you get it back. Anyone, since we played the telephone game since we were in kindergarten, right? Is it ever the same when it gets around the room? No, right? It's in your head. By the time it gets out of your head and you try to make it into words and you tell it out and they hear and there and it gets up in their head and they try to make it sound like it's a completely different landscape, right? Something was missed. You missed something. They missed something. They added something. Okay. So get that back brief. Now, I'm not saying, right, until you create a culture where it's just the standard, that's how you communicate of, all right, now you tell me what you do, right? Because when you do that, you don't even have to ask anymore, right? When you implement the 5 Bravo in your business and you make it an SOP, all of a sudden, as soon as you get done saying, okay, got it. And they're like, yes, here's what you told me to do. And they're just going to give it back to you because that's the SOP, right? You can do that. You can also use this in your personal life. Now, do I suggest that you, after you ask your spouse to do something and say, All right, hun, tell me what I just told you to do. I don't recommend that. Okay. That hasn't worked for me well in the past. I don't recommend it for you either. But you can word this a little differently, right? We can use some soft skills here. Hey, you know what? That was a lot of information. I probably missed something. Can you tell me what you got down? It's that easy. But here's the power of the 5 Bravo. When you do it and something doesn't get done to standard, your next choice is binary. 1, the person you just asked to do that does not yet have the training to do what you need them to do. They get more training then to be able to do what you need them to do. Or 2, they have gotten the training and able to do this, and they're just not capable, in which case they need to move to a different job in the organization, or maybe out of the organization. But if you think back to what you asked to be done, and you like, did I give them the 5? Yep. I didn't give them a clear end state. You can't hold them accountable for anything. That's your fault. That's a chance for you to improve as a leader in your own communication, because you didn't give them a complete order. You didn't give them all the tools they needed to be successful, right? 5 Bravo is very powerful, and you need to implement it today. Communication needs to be clear and concise. Communication systems and SOPs need to be in place, right? Whether you use Slack, whether you use Microsoft Teams, whatever you use, it needs to be clear, and it needs to be simple and concise. Too many words is not a good thing, right? As the world gets more complex, as the battlefield gets more complex, our communications and our direction needs to become simpler. If the battlefield in the fog of war, and you've got multiple enemies coming from different places, and you've got your own people leading 200 people that don't speak your language, you're on 4 different comm channels, you're trying to communicate with 3 levels above you, and you think you're going to give some eloquent soliloquy about what you want done next and it's going to be effective? I don't think so. And as the marketplace gets more complex, your communication needs to get simple, straight, and to the point. There's no time for anything else. Now, here's the thing. It's harder to be clear, concise, and efficient than it is to ramble and get all your words out, stream of consciousness. So this takes time for you. You have to prep and prepare for that meeting, for that call. Don't waste people's time, right? Also, we have to train and coach our people on verbal and written communication, because it's great that you can do it. You're the best orator in the whole place, and you can write the best memo and clear direction, and everybody's got it from the CEO. But if everybody between you and the actual executor can't do it, it's no good. And finally, commander's intent. This is just a powerful construct, right? This could be a whole 30-minute class here, right? When in doubt, they need to know the mission, the basics of what needs to be done, whether it's, the 5 W's, the 5 Bravo, whatever. They need to know the key tasks. Key tasks are things that have to be completed for the mission to be successful, and they need to know end state. Just get that out, because here's the thing in the new marketplace: people don't want to be micromanaged, and you're not going to be able to micromanage. They have to be in a completely different time zone than you. And so when the environment changes, they need to be empowered with all the data to make the decision without you. We're going to talk about this a little bit, right? But we can't train people to be robots, right? We have software for that. We can set up workflows for that. You didn't hire this person to be a robot and be able to take exactly what you told them to do and turn around and do it. You hired them to think and to problem solve and to come up with a better solution than you ever thought of, because they're closer to the ground. The people below you should have better solutions to their problems than you do, because they're closer to it, right? You have this giant view. Give them a general direction. Tell them what your values are. Hey, here are the key tasks. And when it's done, it looks like this. And then let them go and figure it out. Because that's how you're going to develop future leaders. And that's the modern marketplace. Rebel Leadership 3. Principle 3, by, with, and through. I mentioned before, in special forces, we would go down with a 12-man team, and we would lead a 500-person indigenous group. We can't do it ourselves, right? We're force multipliers. And that's how the modern environment has to be. As a leader, you have to be a force multiplier. You aren't the doer, right? Everyone is an individual contributor on a team. So when I was a special forces commander, my job as the commander, all right, was everything outside. My job was to play umbrella for my whole organization, understand the battlefield, understand the geopolitics, understand everything else, and then take it and then communicate the outside world so my team can focus inward, right? And then that was my role as the leader. And then let them do their job. I should never have to fire my rifle, right? I've got a whole team to do that. You shouldn't have to be the one making the sale and doing that, because guess what? You're undercutting all your people. I know it's harder to train others to do the job, but if you don't do that, you are going to become the bottleneck of your organization. If you see my last point there. And your business will be outcompeted by those who are living these principles. If you get nothing out of this if you're a leader of organization, I want you to get out of this top point. Leadership development must be inherent to your core operations. Developing the skills that your leaders need to move up to higher levels of responsibility can't be an extra task. It can't be at the convention, right? It can't be just once a month when you do your counseling session or whatever, right? It can't be an extra thing they do. You need to take whatever skills these people need for the next role, and you need to build it into what they do every single day to accomplish your core functions. You need to look at your model and ensure that's happening. That's the only way this works. The new expectation is that you are constantly investing in your people, bringing in outside ideas, right? Having coaches, having consultants coming to workshops like this, taking new ideas in, giving them opportunities to go learn. We need to be able to teach others how to think, communicate, and empower. And we do that again through intent. We do that through values. We do that by proper communication methods. Principle 4, mission first, people always. Selfish team members must be removed, especially if they're managers or leaders. One second. Getting fired up over here. I'm losing my voice. All right. This is the number one killer in organizations. I'll tell you what the number one thing when I go into companies and do assessments that drives me crazy is where as soon as I get the hint that managers and leaders are holding back on what they're training their people on because they're scared of getting taken over. If you even hear that or think that's happening with the leader in your organization, I would fire them right now. How selfish. And also how insecure. How that leader lacks all confidence. What, I'm going to teach you one thing and all of a sudden you're going to be better than me? Right? You know what Elon Musk did with battery technology? He made it open source. Sure, read what we did last year. We're on to the next thing. If you hoard that knowledge, that environment, right, then you get this scarcity mindset and you stop pushing your people to improve, right? You should be an open book. Here's everything my business is doing right now. Go ahead, world, figure it out. While you're reading what we just did, we're on to the next thing. And your leaders have to be that way too. We have to align incentives all the way from the individual contributor all through way through company mission. Okay. They can't be separate things. And everyone's motivations are not always money. Right. So a lot of it's going to be time, lifestyle, right? People value time and they value convenience, right? Why do people order food on Postmates or Uber Eats or wherever else? Right? Why do they go to a restaurant? Because they don't want to cook because they're tired, right? They're busy doing other stuff. Then they're going to pay money for that. People pay money for time and they pay money for convenience. And your people value that as well. So make their job easier. Give them the tools. Lead them as a whole person. One of the common surveys, as I researched and read dozens of surveys on this Great Resignation to prepare for this, is people want to be able to bring their whole person to work. They don't want to have to button up who they are and pretend like they're someone else, like a robot for 8 hours, and then go home and be like, oh, thank God. Right? It's out the window. It's going the way of the dodo bird. That's where your business is functioning. It's going to be gone soon. Trust and respect must go down your organization before it will ever come up. You can't hire someone and be like, all right, Now, you're new here, right? But you better trust everyone in the organization that we've got your best interests in mind. And we got to, because guess what? People have been burned too many times in business, right? As soon as the market turns and the pandemic happens, what happens? Everyone gets fired. And there's a few companies out there that kept paying people even when they couldn't come to work, and they decreased executive pay. And guess what happened? As soon as the market switched, those companies turned back on and they're ahead of everybody else, because they treated and they took care of their workers as people. Leadership is a human business. It's a uniquely human construct. You can manage a system of parts to be more efficient, and you can manage people. You can't lead a system of parts. You can only lead people. And then finally, the strength of, if you don't list the top 5 strengths of your organization, and one of them is our coaching and counseling program, you need to fix that immediately. That has to be one of the top 5 strengths of your organization. You have to commit to constant counseling and consistent coaching. That human connection, especially since we're all looking at each other through a little camera on our screen right now, becomes even more impactful when you make that connection. And we have to have regular coaching and counseling programs to do that. It can't be inconsistent when you feel like it. And here's the thing about a great coaching and counseling program. You may not, I don't remember all the commanders or bosses I had. I don't remember the content of hardly any. I've got like maybe 6 points ever in the last 20 years from counseling that I actually remember that stuck with me. But I'll tell you what I remember. I remember every single one of my commanders and bosses that cared enough about me and my development to do counseling. And I know those who said, don't worry, there's nothing new. Keep working. They didn't even care enough to take an hour of their time and prep and tell me how I can get better. All right, finally, number 5, there is no steady state, right? Your bodies, your minds, your relationships, your business are like muscles. Muscles are only in 2 states, anabolic or catabolic state. You're either getting stronger or you're getting weaker. You're either getting smarter or you're getting dumber. Your business either getting better or it's getting worse. Your relationships either getting stronger or it's getting weaker. You have to work every day on this. There is no steady state. Things are never okay. They're okay for a moment, and a minute later, they're not, because you're either getting worse or better. With this, the way that this has to happen is that visionary leaders have to create systems, right? You have to create a system so that you are not required for normal operations. If you're the president, the CEO of, the president of your department, the CEO, whatever, the store, just to let things run shouldn't require your input at all. You empower your subordinates, you create systems that operate without you, and then you get your head up out of the trees and you anticipate what's coming next. Just like I talked about as the Special Forces commander, right? As soon as I said go, everything just happened. And then they prepped the weapons. They briefed the need to brief. They started coordinating. Things just went haywire. And I turned around and said, all right, what's coming next? How do I make sure when the inevitable bump in the road happens, we're ready and we're prepped? But if you want to get your hands on everything and you're too scared to empower and lead, you're not going to anticipate the next bump. You're not doing your job as a leader, as an individual contributor, which is to look out ahead while your junior leaders handle the day-to-day and what's happening within the organization. You have to be a learning organization. Now, don't change things just to change things, right? There's this whole thing, people hate change, but the reality is if you get a level deeper and you look at all the studies, whether it's a workplace study or you look at a psychological study, people don't hate change. They hate ambiguity. They hate being surprised. They hate not knowing why. Why are we changing? Right? Because I said so doesn't work in a modern leadership environment. You have to explain to people what's happening. They want to be involved. And then they're ready to change. They can be excited about change. Right? The difference between fear and excitement is a change in mindset. And it's your job as a leader to execute that. In conclusion, people want to do work that matters. What's your mission? What's your culture? What's your team? How are you integrated with your community? What impact are you having? Your workers don't care what your profit and loss statement says, unless it says it's going down and the company's going to fail. But as long as it's going up, they don't care about an extra 1%. But, and honestly, it comes a certain time where if that's your sole driver anyway, man, what an empty existence. Right? Money and a profit motive are powerful, but when they're combined with impact and meaning and purpose, they're unstoppable. Second point in conclusion, if you treat people like widgets, they're going to act like widgets. We have to invest in their development. We have to be flexible. Lifestyle matters, right? How much wasted time is in the normal workday for the person when they go into their office, right? Like half of it. So if they can get done what needs to get done, who cares? What's an extra day of PTO if their work's done and they come back rested and ready to work, right? So be flexible in how you allow people. People are dealing with multiple kids at home, homeschooling, sickness, parents and grandparents that they're worried about, death. Like, I get it. Like, your software solution is fantastic, but it's not the number one priority in their life. So stop acting like it's supposed to be. That's being a manager and not a leader. And then finally, be nimble, efficient, and well-led organizations are going to thrive in the next 10 years. With every change, there's opportunity. And there's a huge opportunity right now. But the literal difference between the companies that thrive and the ones that don't survive in the next 10 to 20 years is going to be the companies that invest in leadership. So what are some next steps that you can do this? First, we got to do an organizational self-assessment. Where are we at on these things? How is our culture? How is our mission? Does everyone down to the lowest person understand why we exist and what problem we're solving for society? How we're making people's lives better? How are we doing on counseling and coaching? How is our communication SOPs? Do our sales managers have time to actually lead their sales teams, or are they in meetings all day? Then we have to do a leader self-assessment. Where are you on this? Where are you on your own self-mastery? Because you should be inspiring everyone under you with how much you're improving every day or how you're overcoming challenges. Motivate and inspire your people, but you do that by living the example every day. Number 3, create a new commander's intent and you get your team involved, right? Get everyone in and understanding this is what we're doing next year. And this is why we're doing it. What do you have questions on? What ideas do you have? Get them involved. Get especially your junior leaders right underneath you and probably 2 levels down should be involved in at least they understanding where we're headed, and you'll get initial buy-in. Team plan, don't desk plan by yourself. 4, right? And then we need to effectively communicate the vision and get everybody on board. Let them know where we're headed. Let's get them inspired. Let's get them motivated. Let's get them bought in. Let's align incentives. And then take dramatic action to shift your culture. So I appreciate everyone coming today, right? I'll put in the notes, but if you go to my Calendly link, is easy. It's Calendly, it's /Sean Patton. I've got a bunch of time slots up for 15-minute sessions. If you want to talk about yourself, I have a small group called Stronger Leaders Society. I can give you more information on that. If you're interested in talking about your organization, I'm happy to help there. Or we can talk about doing a workshop or speaking engagement, right? Or if you just want to bounce some ideas off me, I'm here to help. This is what I'm passionate about. Right. And then if you registered with LinkedIn, I've got your email. I'll send you a follow up with all of my contact info. So I hope everyone appreciated and got value from today and the lessons learned. But the reality is that the marketplace is quickly shifting and there's huge advantages. There's a huge opportunity to jump forward for your organization. We have to embrace change, embrace the chaos, and lead with confidence. So thanks everybody today. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Thanks so much.